Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we have the sources you asked for, and we're going right to the heart of one of history's, well, most successful and definitely most feared empires.
We are. We're cracking open the operating manual of the Mongol state.
And that manual is... what exactly are we looking at?
It's some really fascinating material. We have excerpts from The Secret History of the Mongols. That's their origin story, their dynastic narrative, and we're pairing that with fragments of the Great Yasa, their constitutional law, and the Bilik.
The Bilik being Chinggis Khan's sayings, right?
His essential sayings, yes. Together, they form the blueprint.
So our mission today is to really get inside that blueprint. How does a bunch of, scattered nomadic clans become this massive geopolitical force? I mean, one of its successor states, the Chagatai Ulus, was 3.5 million square kilometers.
And that's the question. We're looking at the law, the loyalty structures, and the myths that held it all together.
We're going to trace this line from a, frankly, wild origin myth all the way to really specific laws about, say, how much a general was allowed to drink.
So let's start with that divine justification. Where does it all begin in the secret history?
It begins with an ancestor, a woman named Alangoa.
Right. Every empire needs a divine mandate, and this one is... well, it's pretty mystical. The story goes that after her husband, Dobin Mergen, died, Alangoa had 3 more sons.
Which, understandably, raised some questions from her other children.
It did, and her explanation is what establishes the entire divine lineage. She told them the pregnancies weren't from any man.
She claimed it was a shining visitor.
A son of heaven! She said his radiance entered her, and then, and this detail is so specific, he departed like a yellow dog wagging his tail.
It sounds bizarre to us now.
Oh, absolutely. But it was profoundly important. By saying her sons were literally sons of heaven, she immediately elevated that bloodline. It gave them the ultimate religious and political legitimacy.
And this wasn't just some story people told around the fire. This was state policy.
Totally. The Persian historian Rashid ad-Din wrote about this. He said Mongol children were taught their ancestry from the moment they could speak. His words were that no one was ignorant of his tribe and origin.
So knowing your lineage was your place in the whole order.
It's your place in the political and military world, yes. And Alangoa didn't stop with the divine story. She gave them a very practical lesson.
The story of the arrows. I love this part.
It's the perfect metaphor. She takes her 5 sons, gives them each a single arrow, and they snap it easily.
But a bundle of 5.
Unbreakable. And that became the central philosophy. Unity wasn't just a good idea, it was the only way to survive. Separate, you're weak. Together, you're invincible.
Which brings us right to the birth of Temujin, the man who would become Chinggis Khan.
He's born into this lineage, into this idea of mandated unity, and his birth is just dripping with symbolism.
The sources say he was born clutching a clot of blood.
A clot of blood the size of an alchek. And for you listening, an alchek is a sheep's ankle bone. It's used in games. So right away you have this image of bloody birth, a sign of destiny, but also tied to the very real nomadic world.
And his name, Temujin, that came from a captured Tatar general.
Yes, Temujin Uge. But it goes deeper. Researchers point out that the root of the name, Temur, means iron.
An iron will.
An iron will, military strength. The stage is set from the moment he's born. The expectation is already there.
So you have the myth, the divine right, but how do you actually build the machine? How do you take these riders and turn them into an administrative state that can conquer the world?
Through total integration. You have to understand, the Mongol state was a war machine. There was no real distinction between civilian and military.
So every healthy adult male was basically a soldier in reserve.
A warrior, yes. You'd run your household in peacetime, but the second the call came, you took up arms. Instantly.
Let's get to the organizational chart, because this is really the foundation of their entire government, not just the army.
It is. It's a decimal system. Units of 10, 100, 1,000, and then the huge tumens of 10,000.
And here's the crucial part, right? These units, they weren't just soldiers.
No. The units came with the land they occupied and the laborers on that land. And this entire package was granted as a hereditary fief to the lords, the Noyons.
So it's less a military posting and more of a permanent social contract.
It's exactly that. It locked in 2 critical things: loyalty and supply. The Noyons owed the Khan absolute military service. In return, they got permanent control of people and resources.
And the rule that sealed it all was that you couldn't move between these units.
Strictly forbidden. And that's what made it so ironclad. You couldn't run, you couldn't switch your allegiance. The laborers were essentially tied to that land and that lord. It institutionalized control on a massive scale.
But before he could build this national structure, Temujin had to win some brutal internal fights,
Hmm.
especially against the Taichids.
A huge challenge. After his father died, a lot of people abandoned him, and the Taichids, led by Targatai Kyrltak, were the biggest tribe, the main opposition. Temujin's survival came down to cultivating just absolute personal loyalty.
With his companions, the Nukers.
Yes. And the stories of how he gained those first nukers are so telling.
Take Borchu, his very first one. The story is almost mundane.
It is, and that's why it's so powerful. He becomes a nuker after helping Temujin track down 8 stolen horses. For 3 days and 3 nights. It's not about a huge battle. It's about sheer, exhaustive effort for something as simple as lost property. That's the bond.
And then you have Yelme. I mean, his service was practically superhuman.
It really was. He saved Temujin's life multiple times. Once, during a siege, he stood guard over him. Later, after a battle, Temujin was wounded by a poisoned arrow.
And Yelme sucked the poison out.
He sucked the poison blood from the wound himself, a massive risk, an incredible act of loyalty.
But the best story, the most memorable one, is when Temujin was nearly broken by thirst during a standoff with the Taishid.
Right. He's exhausted, dehydrated. So, Jelmi, he strips off his clothes, his boots, everything, and just sneaks into the enemy camp.
Looking for water.
And he finds a huge wineskin full of Prostokvasha curdled milk and brings it back. It's almost funny to think about. The future conqueror of the universe was saved by a bag of sour milk.
Procured by his half-naked friend who snuck through enemy lines.
It just proves the lengths these men would go to. That's the kind of loyalty that built an empire.
Okay, so that personal loyalty then gets scaled up. How does it become a philosophy of absolute warfare and imperial conquest?
Well, the turning point is in 1189, when he's given the title Chinggis Khan. He's now the leader of the All Mongols Aulis.
And the title itself is significant.
Hugely. Scholars debate if it means oceanic or great, or if it's tied to a powerful shaman deity. Either way, it signals a shift. He's no longer just a clan leader, he's the head of a unified state.
And one of the first acts of that state is just a brutal reckoning.
With the Tatars. They were old enemies. They'd betrayed Mongol leaders before, including his own family. So after defeating them, Chinggis Khan holds a council.
And the decision is to put an end to them forever.
A systematic extermination of the adult male Tatar population. It's horrifying, no question.
But from a certain political standpoint.
Many historians argue it was a ruthless but necessary consolidation of power. The Tatars were vassals of the rival Jin dynasty. They were a constant source of instability. By eradicating them, he sent a terrifyingly clear message about the price of disloyalty.
So with that internal threat gone, he turns outward, against the Jin dynasty, starting around 1211.
And the Jin were experts at the old divide-and-conquer strategy against the nomads. But this was something new. The Mongol invasion showed how fast they could adapt.
This is where they learned siege warfare, right? It's a huge leap for a cavalry-based army.
A massive leap. And they did it by being pragmatic. They learned from captured Chinese artisans and defectors. Within just a few years, they're using technology they'd never seen before. Fire arrows, trebuchets, even ceramic bombs filled with molten metal.
So their military becomes this hybrid of nomadic speed and sedentary engineering.
Exactly. And holding it all together at the center was the Imperial Guard, the Keshikten.
They were more than just bodyguards.
Oh, much more. They were the absolute elite. They protected the Khan, yes, but they also served as the model of discipline for the entire state. Their roles could be anything from carrying his quiver to being his cupbearer.
And discipline was severe. I remember reading about the punishments.
Unbelievably harsh. If a guard missed a shift, they were beaten with a stick. 3 times, 7 times, up to 37 times. And if it kept happening, exile. It established a standard right at the heart of power. Loyalty and obedience were absolute.
Which brings us to the law itself. If the military was the body, the Great Yasa and the Bilik were the mind and soul, formalized around 1206.
Right. The Yasa is the constitution, the legal code. The Bilik are the sayings, the ethical framework. And they were revolutionary because they replaced all the old competing tribal customs with one single law for everyone.
So what were the big ideas? What held this diverse empire together?
Well, one of the most surprising was religious neutrality. Chinggis Khan didn't impose a single faith. He commanded belief in one creator, God, but he honored scholars and ascetics from all religions. Muslims, Christians, Buddhists.
That feels incredibly modern.
It was pure pragmatism. By treating all sects as one and avoiding fanaticism, he removed religion as a reason for conquered people to rebel. Stability was more important than theology.
He also went after corruption and hierarchy.
He did. The law demanded simplicity. No more of the flowery, excessive titles that you saw in other empires. This was about efficiency. It stripped away aristocratic pride and made it clear that your value is in your function, not your fancy title.
But the Bilik also gets very personal, doesn't it? I'm thinking of the section on alcohol.
Yes, it's incredibly detailed. It shows he understood that a leader's personal failings could become a military disaster. He says that wine and vodka destroy the mind, that they lead to murder and disputes and make commanders useless.
And the punishments were spelled out.
Very clearly, if you get drunk 3 times, you're banished. If you keep doing it, your own family has to decide your fate. This wasn't just advice, it was law. He was demanding a clear head from his leadership, starting at the very top.
That focus on disciplined leadership comes through so clearly in that debate he had with his sons about the highest pleasure.
A fantastic story. Jochi and Tului talk about personal gain hunting, wealth. Chagatai talks about conquest, crushing enemies.
But it's Ugedai's answer that he singles out.
Yes. He deems Ugedai's answer entirely correct. And Ugedai defined the highest pleasure as the welfare of the state, making sure old people were prosperous and young people were safe. It shows the Khan saw his empire as more than just a war machine. It was a long-term project.
Which makes what happened to Ugedai so ironic.
Yeah. Heartbreakingly so. After he becomes great Khan, he admits to 2 huge flaws. And they're the very things his father warned against in the Bilik.
He said he was a captive to green wine.
And that he was swayed by gossip to kill a loyal companion. It just shows that even the most perfect legal code, the Yasa and the Bilik, can't always save you from your own human weaknesses.
So we've seen the whole journey. From a divine myth to consolidating power through brutal loyalty, and finally formalizing it all with a universal legal code.
And the core of their success, it really wasn't just the horses. It was the discipline of the Yasa and the Bilik. That law was applied to everyone. When his own sons, Jochi and Chagatai, were physically fighting, it was the great commanders who had to step in and separate them. The law was above even the royal family.
That discipline created the legacy. But for all the meticulous records in the secret history, there's a strange gap. An unknown decade in Chinggis Khan's life, roughly 1168 to 1194.
The sources just go quiet. Rashid ad-Din even says that details from this period, when Chinggis Khan was in a distressed state, were only written briefly.
So we have to leave you, the listener, with this question. Given how obsessed the Yasa and the Bilik are with controlling the image of the ruler, with discipline, with avoiding vice, we have to ask,
What could have happened in that lost decade? What kind of personal failure, what political humiliation could be so damaging to the official story of the divine ruler that the architects of this empire just decided to erase it from history completely? Was it a failing related to the very vices he later legislated against?
something to think about when you consider the difference between the glorious myth and the hidden reality of forging an empire. That's all for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.